So, artificial intelligence. You hear that term everywhere, right? And let's be honest, it can sound super complex. But what if we could just strip away all the sci-fi stuff and get right down to the real simple idea at its core? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's just start with the biggest question right off the bat. What is artificial intelligence, really? I mean, when you hear the letters AI, what pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's probably something straight out of the movies, right?
But here's the thing. The very first thing you gotta know is that it's so much more than just robots. That's probably the biggest misconception out there. Now, don't get me wrong, robotics is a super cool part of AI, but the whole field is way, way bigger. And to really get our heads around it, we actually have to take a step back and ask an even bigger question. What even is intelligence?
And that question leads us to this really simple but honestly super powerful way of thinking about it. We can split intelligence into two kinds. You've got life intelligence on one side and science intelligence on the other. And trust me, getting this difference, well, it's the key to unlocking everything else about AI.
So on one side, you have life intelligence, the kind we all have. It's messy, it's gut feelings, it's driven by evolution, hormones, all that stuff. It's basically how we get through the day and survive. But then on the other side, you have science intelligence. And this is our attempt to wrangle the world into something that makes sense, something systematic, objective, and structured. And the really crucial part, it's something you can teach.
So, with that in mind, what is AI? Well, it's our attempt to build that science intelligence. AI is really just a big umbrella term that covers all the different scientific ways we're trying to create intelligent systems. Systems that exist outside of the natural life systems like us. We're basically trying to copy what life does, but do it in a way that's structured and something we can actually build and repeat.
And since it is this huge umbrella term, you can think of AI as having a bunch of different branches, kind of like a big family tree of technologies. I bet you've heard a ton about machine learning, right? But that's just one branch on this tree. It's just one piece of a way bigger puzzle. So let's go ahead and meet the rest of the family.
And this family tree has some really fascinating branches. You've got machine learning and deep learning, of course. We'll definitely get to that. But you've also got robotics, which is like the physical body of AI. Then there are control systems, which are all about precision. You even have game engines creating these simulated worlds. And believe it or not, material technology, where intelligence is literally built into the stuff things are made of. How wild is that?
Okay, let's talk about robotics for a second. This is basically where we give AI a body to move around in. We combine rules, sensors, and control systems, and suddenly you have a machine that can actually interact with the physical world. A classic example is a robot arm on an assembly line. Those incredibly precise, repeatable movements, that's a really powerful form of applied intelligence right there.
And tied right into robotics are control systems. You can think of this as the precision engine of AI. It's all about using math to guide something with just incredible accuracy. You know those little line follower bots that perfectly stick to a black line on the floor? That constant, tiny adjustment it's making? That's a very specific, but very powerful type of intelligence in action.
All right, now let's zoom in on the branch that gets pretty much all the headlines these days, machine learning. This really is the engine room of modern AI. And at its core, it's all about one thing: finding patterns in data to make predictions or classifications. Okay, the most common type you'll hear about is called supervised learning, and it's actually pretty straightforward. It works in 3 steps. Step 1, you just feed the machine a ton of data that's already labeled. Think thousands of pictures, and every single one has the label cat. Step 2, the machine just churns through all that data looking for the patterns, the catness in all those images. And finally, step 3, you show it a totally new picture it's never seen before, and it uses those patterns it learned to make a guess. Yep, that's a cat, or nope, not a cat. Super simple idea, right? But the results can be incredibly powerful.
But that's not the only way machines learn. They don't always need us to label everything for them. There's something called unsupervised learning, where the AI just dives into a pile of data and finds hidden patterns all by itself, like a company grouping similar customers together without even knowing what the groups represent at first. And then you have reinforcement learning. This is where an AI learns by doing, basically through trial and error. It gets rewards for good moves and penalties for bad ones. Just think of an AI learning to master a video game.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the how. But that brings us to the biggest question of all, doesn't it? So what? Who cares? How is all this tech actually changing our world? It's time to shift gears and move from the code to the culture. And this debate, is this new tech a good thing or a bad thing? It's not new at all. We've been asking this for centuries. But with AI, it just feels different. The stakes feel so much higher. The sheer speed that it's developing and how deeply it's getting woven into our daily lives is, well, it's unlike anything we've ever seen before.
And a really key insight here is that the biggest impact from AI probably isn't going to be some dramatic movie-style robot takeover. No, it's going to be something way more subtle. It's going to change the actual foundations, the institutions that we've built our entire society on.
And if you look around, you can already see which of these pillars are starting to feel the pressure. We're talking about fundamental things like democracy, human rights, even our own personal beliefs and sense of identity, not to mention our entire economy and the way we work. See, the impact isn't hitting us as individuals first. It's reshaping the very systems we all depend on to function.
So, all of this leads us to one last really fascinating and maybe just a little bit unsettling question. As this science intelligence gets better and better at copying our life intelligence, what does that actually mean for us? Are we, in a way, starting to hack ourselves?
No, seriously, think about it. If a machine can create beautiful art, if it can write poetry that moves you, if it can make complex decisions, what is it really that sets you apart from just being a very, very advanced simulation?
Now, the gut reaction for most of us is to point to our inner world, right? I have consciousness, I have feelings, I have willpower. We just kind of assume that's the big impenetrable wall between us and the machine. But is it really? Because here's the rub. Just how strong is that so-called willpower when we're outsourcing our own thinking to an AI dozens of times a day? What happens to our own judgment when the machine's recommendation is just, well, better? Or at least, easier?
I mean, think about it. We do this all the time, every single day. We let YouTube pick the next video for us. We just blindly follow what the GPS says, even if it looks wrong. We accept life-altering decisions about things like loans or even job applications that were made by an algorithm we don't understand. We are already letting AI guide our choices.
And here's the absolute kicker. To do all this, the AI doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't need to understand anything in the human sense. There's this famous saying, all models are wrong, but some are useful. An AI model is just a big statistical guess based on patterns. So it could be totally, fundamentally wrong about reality, but if it's useful enough to predict what you'll do next and nudge you in a certain direction, then for all intents and purposes, it works.
Which brings us to this final looping thought. We are creating this strange feedback loop. The machine learns from us, from our data, and then we turn around and change how we act based on what the machine shows us. And as that loop gets tighter and tighter, that line between our intelligence and artificial intelligence, well, it starts to get really, really blurry. And that leaves us with the ultimate question to chew on. Where does one end and the other begin?